Donald Trump has challenged President Biden to visit the Ohio town where a train derailment caused a toxic chemical spill. During his visit to the region, the former president inspected the damage and bought food from a local McDonald's for the area's fire and police departments.
That's a good one to own, right?
Yes, it is. One of the best.
So we're going to take care of your fire police. We'll take care of that. Plus the people that are in here, they're going to get a nice free meal. All right? Thank you, everybody.
Joining me now is the host of the US Report on Sky News and one-third of The Outsiders, James Morrow. Great to see you, James. So Donald Trump trying to get a bit of momentum before more Republican candidates put their hand up.
Yeah, look, this was really, really interesting, Kieran, because, over the last few weeks, what have we seen Donald Trump do? Well, we've seen him, undertake a series of bizarre attacks against Ron DeSantis. We've seen him also attack Nikki Haley, who's entered the race recently for presidency for 2024. And now, all of a sudden, he's actually gone back into sort of almost like a playing as president mode. He's gone to East Palestine, Ohio. He's challenged Joe Biden and said he should get here to this town where there was this terrible toxic spill that the government has acted very strange and frankly cagey about, and people are very worried about. He went out there, he did his Trump thing, he did the whole shtick, he bought McDonald's for everybody, he glad-handed, he signed hats. A totally different Trump than we've seen over the last couple of months, particularly since those midterm elections, which really seemed to take a lot of the wind out of his sails.
The Democratic National Committee, they're treating it seriously too in terms of him potentially being their opponent. They issued a statement to reporters saying that his trip serves as a reminder that Trump and his administration made gutting transportation and environmental safety regulations a key priority of their MAGA agenda. So they wanted to return fire, James.
Yeah, well, and look, we're going to be taking a really deep dive into this tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on the U.S. Report. But the fact is, the Democrats, they haven't been there. Joe Biden has barely said a word about it. Pete Buttigieg, the transport secretary, has been completely missing in action on this and said, I guess I should have gotten out there and talked about this. So, it's one thing, and we see this here in Australia all the time, Kieran, it's one thing to blame the last guys who were in office for the problems you're having now. And it's another thing entirely to go out and actually do something about it yourself. And right now, they're doing the former.
Donald Trump gave so there was that, and then he gave a bit of a foreign policy speech. I want to play that for our viewers now and get your reaction, James. Let's have a look.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out.
So not just the local policies, trying to turn his attention internationally as well, and using those terms, targeting warmongers and America last globalists is what he uses.
Well, it's pretty interesting, the philosophy he's laying out there. And later on in the speech, too, he basically accused the State Department and, the Washington Beltway of kind of pushing Ukraine too hard to join NATO and essentially provoking Russia's attack on Ukraine. He condemned Putin's attack on Russia, but said, the way that the whole Ukraine situation has been handled has been terrible. The interesting thing here is there's a big isolationist wing in the Republican Party now, and a lot of people who look at the last 20-plus years of American foreign policy and military policy, and they say, well, Iraq, didn't work out so great. Afghanistan, was a forever war that ended in disaster in Kabul when they pulled out of there. Why is this government so keen, to increasingly escalate this conflict in Ukraine rather than figuring out, there's what they say, some sort of settlement and some sort of end to the conflict? And Trump worries, and I don't know how much he himself worries, or he thinks people are worried about it, that this could lead to some sort of nuclear exchange, World War III, continental European warfare with Vladimir Putin.
So you've got this isolationist wing, as you described it, in the Republican Party. How do the other likely candidates, we know they're going to run, like DeSantis, how will he manage that? Because there's still, I would imagine, a majority of Americans who'd support some military assistance to Ukraine, isn't there?
Well, I mean, look, people support some military assistance to Ukraine. I think where there's a lot of discomfort is this idea of a blank check and of the idea that, you know, this is going to keep escalating and escalating and escalating, because I don't really know if anybody's thought through this any more than just kind of a wishful hope that at some point Vladimir Putin says, oh, well, you know, this is all getting too hard. I guess we'll just pack up and go home. And I'm not sure that that's exactly the way Putin thinks about these things. But, you know, you asked about the other candidates. Well, Ron DeSantis, we don't really know a lot about because he's focused so much on domestic issues, you know, COVID, education, wokeness in the classroom, all of that stuff. Nikki Haley, however, she does have a track record on this, and I would say that she's a fair bit more hawkish than Donald Trump on this stuff. And I suspect that a lot of other candidates who are, you know, circling around there on the wings, such as, for example, Mike Pompeo, they would definitely be a lot more hawkish than Donald Trump. So this is going to be a fascinating argument to watch play out in the Republican Party.
Only 40 seconds left, but Biden to Ukraine, what did you make of that visit? Important for solidarity?
Look, I just thought it was a whole lot of show, but without a lot of sizzle at the end of it. He went to go, and it was a big thing, months in the making to do it. But what wound up actually changing? Well, nothing, you know, and I think Joe Biden is going to be open to a lot of criticism that he's in favor of freedom for Ukraine, but at the same time, you know, he's not so keen on freedom in the United States. Obviously, two very different things, but people would like to see a bit more focus on, say, you know, the FBI and things that they've been doing, and you're going to see a lot of pressure from Republicans on that front as well.
James Morrow, great to chat. Thanks. We will see you next Thursday. James joining us every Thursday at the same time.